What's going on, guys? My name is Mason Roach from Mason Sonar Services, and I'm proud to announce the newest addition of my business, Tournament Lake Breakdowns. This is going to be specifically for high school anglers in the Bayou City Division and Houston Division. In these lake breakdowns, we're going to be going over three major things. Number one is going to be how to practice and what kind of cover that the lake offers. Number two is going to be bait selection. And then number three is going to be how to adjust with the weather conditions on tournament day. I'm really looking forward to releasing these videos and sharing my knowledge about tournament bass fishing with high school anglers and their captains. All right, let's get right into it. Lake Houston, definitely not the most anticipated tournament of the year by any means. This place always seems to present a challenge for anglers and is very tough, especially being that it's fall. Fall fishing is super hit or miss, and really what it all depends on is the weather. And quite frankly, we've had some weird weather. We had a couple weeks where we had some chilly nights. We were waking up, putting hoodies on, maybe throwing the bibs on to go fishing, and now all of a sudden we are in shorts, flip-flops, and a long sleeve, just like I was in August and September. So it's going to be a challenge, so be prepared to fish for maybe 5 to 7 bites. Lake Houston's never been one of those places for me that I go fishing and have a 30 fish day, a 40 fish day, even a 10 or 15 fish day. It's tough. So you really need to have that mindset going into this, that you might not catch a whole lot of numbers, but if you fish the correct way around the correct cover, you can still have a really good bag of fish to weigh in at the end of the day. So fall fishing is all about bait fish. If you're not around a lot of shad, you're probably not around a good population of bass. Lake Houston is predominantly a stained, muddy water lake to begin with, so a lot of times a year the fish are shallow anyways. But all over the country in the fall, the fish are up on the bank, they're chasing the shad in the pockets, on flats. They're using all the cover they can by the bank to ambush. So the best part about this tournament is we can shut the electronics off, put the trolling motor down, fish the bank, and have confidence that we're going to be around bass. So the type of cover in Lake Houston definitely varies. We have docks, we have some rock, we have lay down trees, we have standing timber, and then we have some cypress trees. Being that it is fall, I'm mostly going to be targeting lay down trees and any sort of rock that I may come across. Now that we've went over what kind of cover's in the lake and what we're mostly going to be targeting this weekend, let's go over locations. Since we know in the fall that a lot of the fish are shallow and chasing bait fish, it's a lot easier for them to ambush that bait fish in the backs of a creek or up on a flat. So I'll show an example of this on Navionics and Google Earth after this clip, but I'm mainly looking for pockets and creeks that are right off the main lake. I prefer to target these because I feel like there's a better population of bass on the main lake, so when fall rolls around they have an easy route to go in and eat and come right back out for winter. So let's talk about how we're going to fish once we get into these creeks and pockets. Lake Houston is a very stained, muddy water lake, so a lot of these fish live extremely shallow. In my opinion, Lake Houston is always fished pretty small. Now, what that term means is it just gets crowded very easily. So if you go into a pocket or a creek and you see a boat idling out, or there's someone in there already fishing with you, don't freak out. The best thing you can do is do what others won't. And what I mean by that is if you pull up to a laydown and you flip your jig in there, don't just go to the next one right away. Make multiple flips. Maybe downsize your bait. Make the adjustments that others won't, and you will find success. Now that we've went over different types of cover, structure, and locations on the lake, let's get into bait selection. So the way we're going to do bait selection in these videos is going to be based on your morning bite, midday, and afternoon. A lot of times, this time of year, there'll be a really good morning bite and it'll slowly die off. But if it is one of those magical days, sometimes I'll eat this stuff all day long. So for our morning bite, we're really going to try to imitate shad. That's the biggest thing this time of year, so a lot of these baits are to mimic that. So the first bait we're going to start with is going to be a white buzzbait. Man, I can't tell you how many mornings in the fall that I've kicked off my tournament morning with a solid 4 to 6 pound class fish on this bait right here. So the reason a buzzbait's so good this time of year is it mimics shad on top of the water, and it can plow through those laydowns like nobody's business. So whenever you're on Lake Houston and you're seeing these laydown trees, do not be scared to roll the signal over the top of them. You won't get hung near as much as you'd think, and like I said, it produces big bites. Now you may notice on my buzzbait I got a trailer. I'm really big on that, and I highly recommend you start doing it. Not only does this help with castability, I can skip this thing good, and it also gives the fish something to hold on to. When all you have is a skirt, to me it just kind of slips out of their mouth sometimes. I really am a big fan of this. Another thing you're going to see is a trailer hook. In the fall, fish are notorious for slapping at baits. I have 100% caught and even won money in tournaments just because of this trailer hook right here. So I highly recommend that you put that on. This is just a 3/8 ounce War Eagle buzzbait, and I've had great luck out of these things. This is by far my favorite buzzbait, and I've tried a lot of them. I throw this on 50 to 65 pound braid. I like about a 7.2 heavy rod. That way I still have good castability, plenty of backbone for me to hook those fish and get them out of cover still. And then about a 7 or 8 gear ratio reel. You don't want a slow gear ratio with this. If they eat it, you want to be able to catch up with them, get a good hook set, and put them in the boat. Now, if the fish will not come up for topwater, because some mornings they just won't. They just don't want to commit to it and eat it. If I've thrown it for a solid 30 minutes without a bite, typically I'll put it down and start changing stuff up. Sometimes less time than that. So for me, if they're not eating the topwater, but I still need to cover some water, these are going to be my two big players on Lake Houston. A friend of mine that lives there has told me this has been the deal lately. He's been catching some good fish on it, and then also a squarebill. You're going to notice a trend here: bright colors. This water stained. You want these fish to be able to see what you're throwing. This spinnerbait, same thing. War Eagle, 3/8 ounce, and you're going to notice this blade is painted. Those fish can see it really well in that stained water, and of course, a spinnerbait imitates shad great. So I highly recommend having this on for this weekend. It will be a big player. If you get to some rock or even in some laydowns, you can throw a squarebill and they get through there. This is always going to be a great bait this time of year. Imitates shad well, and like I said, it's a fish catcher. So those are definitely my 3 baits for the morning bite. And even throughout the day, I'd randomly pick up to get some quality fish in the boat. All right, so our morning bite's over, and we're kind of getting in that mid-morning lull. I think this exists just about every time of year, but it really does seem to be a big thing in the fall. Fish are feeding early, and then they kind of take a break, and then it sometimes picks back up in the afternoon. So the way I go about that is by slowing down. When you get to these laydowns or the docks or a cypress tree, instead of still throwing that buzzbait around or a squarebill, I'll pick up something like a black and blue jig. This is just a Strike King finesse jig. It's got a good hook on it. It's black and blue, so those fish can see it well with a crawl on it. This is always going to be a great bait in the fall for me. So the setup that I like to throw this jig on is, a pretty hefty rod, a 7.2 heavy, some 20-pound line, so I can really get those fish out of those thick trees and laydowns and docks. You don't want to be throwing 10 or 12-pound test on this, because you're just going to break fish off that you need. And to be honest with you, I do not believe that you're going to get more bites because you throw a bait like this on light line. To me, that's more drop shot, wacky rig, more finesse applications. So I'm using big rod, big line, and a high-speed reel. So these 2 rods here kind of go hand in hand. We're going to kick it off with the Texas rig first, and then we'll get to the shaky head. So there are some days that, just like I talked about with the buzzbait, fish not wanting to come up and eat it, that they don't always want to jig. Fish in the fall get kind of moody, and you just never know what exactly is going to be the best that day. So that's why I like to have all 3 of these on the front of my boat. This here is just a regular old Texas rig, creature bait. This is a Rage Bug from Strike King. And you may notice a theme here when we start going through these jigs and soft plastics is they're all dark colors. When you get in that muddy stained water, you want to be throwing something that those fish can see. And these dark colors are definitely the way to go. This setup here is on 17-pound line, 7-foot heavy rod with a fast gear ratio reel so I can get them out of that thick cover. You may notice I have my weight pegged on this bait. I feel like I get asked that a ton. When you are fishing thick, heavy cover, you want this pegged so that when that bait goes down in it, you're not getting hung up. If you have no peg, you can see this weight is free sliding. You're gonna get it wrapped around more trees, dock posts, and you're gonna stay hung up more than anything. So you always wanna peg that weight. This one's from 6 cents. I have great luck out of it, and I highly recommend it. But this is definitely something I would keep as an alternative to the jig on the front deck of my boat. because there are some days, like I said, they just don't want it, and this thing is the deal. And last but not least, the good old faithful shaky head with a black trick worm. This bait's hard to beat all over Texas, but I've had a lot of success on Lake Houston with this, especially if I get in an area that has good fish, but it's crowded. I mentioned earlier that the lake fish is small, and if there's a lot of people around you and they're throwing a jig, they're throwing a buzzbait, Texas rigs, try downsizing, try finesse fishing around them, and you will catch some fish. I have this on 15-pound line. This is a 3/16 ounce custom made shaky head. And once again, that black color, that dark color, so those fish in that stained water can see it. So if you look up and it's 11 o'clock, you don't have a fish in the boat, try tying this on, really slowing down, and you will put some fish in the box. All right, guys, so we went over cover, location, and bait selection for this tournament. The last thing we're gonna go over is conditions. So looking at the weather for Saturday, as of now, it's showing kind of a partly cloudy day with, not much wind. Looks like it might get up to about 8 miles an hour. Now we all know how that goes. Sometimes, Mother Nature throws a curveball on tournament day and the weatherman says it's not gonna blow and you wake up and it's 20-mile-an-hour wind. But as of now, that's what we have to base off of. So we're gonna start focusing our game plan around that. So a good partly cloudy day with a little bit of a breeze this time of year can be really good. It's just enough sun to set those fish up where they'll be really in the heart of the laydowns and under the docks good, to get some shade, but it's also cloudy enough to where you have some fish roaming around. I really like those kind of days because you can kind of pick your poison and just see what's best. I hope my first lake breakdown helps you better understand how to fish Lake Houston and brings you some knowledge on what baits to throw, what type of cover to target, and location on the lake. I'm really looking forward to doing more of these. The production's only going to get better. We're going to have some special guests on for certain lakes. I got a lot of friends in this industry that are really good fishermen that are looking forward to being a part of this as well. Of course, remember to check your email the day before the tournament to hear my final thoughts on the conditions and what adjustments I would make on tournament morning. Thank you guys, and good luck.